Hello. Okay, I'm here to read you the next chapter in George's Marvellous Medicine. In the last chapter, George was very, very busy cooking up his medicine and adding some brown paint. And now he's ready to test it out on Grandma. So let's just see what happens to Grandma in this next chapter. Okay, and it's called Grandma Gets the Medicine. So just sit back. Grandma sat hunched in her chair by the window. The wicked little eyes followed George closely as he crossed the room towards her. "You're late," she snapped. "I don't think I am, Grandma." "Don't interrupt me in the middle of a sentence," she shouted. "But you'd finished your sentence, Grandma." "There you go again," she cried. "Always interrupting and arguing. You really are a tiresome little boy, aren't you? Now what's the time?" "It's exactly 11 o'clock, Grandma." "You're lying as usual. Stop talking so much and give me my medicine. Shake the bottle first and then pour it into the spoon and make sure it's a whole spoonful." "Are you going to gulp it all down in one go?" George asked her. "Or will you sip it?" "What I do is none of your business," the old woman said. "Now fill the spoon." As George removed the cork and began very slowly to pour the thick brown stuff into the spoon, he couldn't help thinking back upon all the mad and marvellous things that had gone into making of this crazy stuff. The shaving soap, the hair remover, the dandruff cure, the automatic washing machine powder, the flea powder for dogs, the shoe polish, the black pepper, the horseradish sauce, and all the rest of them, not to mention the powerful animal pills and powders and liquids. Oh, and the brown paint. "Open your mouth wide, Grandma," he said, "and I'll pop it in." The old hag opened her small, wrinkled mouth, showing disgusting brown pale teeth. "Here we go," George cried out. "Swallow it down." He pushed the spoon well into her mouth and tipped the mixture down her throat. Then he stepped back to watch the result. It was worth watching. Grandma yelled, "Ow!" and her whole body shot up, whoosh, in the air. It was exactly as though someone had pushed an electric wire through the underneath of her chair and switched on the current. Up she went like a jack-in-the-box, and she didn't come down. She stayed there, suspended in mid-air, about 2 feet up, still in a sitting position. But right now, frozen, quivering, the eyes bulging, the hair standing straight up on end. "Is something wrong, Grandma?" George asked her politely. "Are you all right?" Suspended there in space, the old girl was beyond speaking. The shock that George's marvellous mixture had given her must have been tremendous. You'd have thought she'd swallowed a red-hot poker the way she took off from the chair. Then down she came again, with a plop, back into her seat. "Call the fire brigade!" she shouted suddenly. "My stomach's on fire!" "Oh, it's just the medicine, Grandma," George said. "It's good, strong stuff." "Fire!" the old woman yelled. "Fire in the basement! Get a bucket! Man the hoses! Do something quick!" "Cool it, Grandma," George said, but he got a bit of a shock when he saw the smoke coming out of her mouth and out of her nostrils. Clouds of black smoke were coming out of her nose and blowing around the room. "By golly, you really are on fire," George said. "Of course I'm on fire," she yelled. "I'll be burnt to a crisp. Oh, I'll be fried to a frizzle. I'll be boiled like a beetroot." George ran into the kitchen and came back with a jug of water. "Open your mouth, Grandma," he cried. He could hardly see her for the smoke, but he managed to pour half a jugful down her throat. A sizzling sound, the kind you get if you hold a frying pan under the cold tap, came up from deep down in Grandma's stomach. The old hag bucked and shied and snorted. She gasped and gurgled. Spouts of water came shooting out of her, and the smoke cleared away. "The fire's out," George announced proudly. "You'll be all right now, Grandma." "All right?" she yelled. "Who's all right? There's Jackie Jumpers in my tummy. Oh, there's squigglers in my belly, and there's bangers in my bottom." She began bouncing up and down in the chair. Quite obviously, she was not very comfortable. "You'll find it's doing you a lot of good, that medicine, Grandma," George said. "Good?" she screamed. "Doing me good? It's killing me." Then she began to bulge. She was swelling. She was puffing up all over. Someone was pumping her up. Well, that's how it looked. Was she going to explode? Her face was turning from purple to green. But wait, she had a puncture somewhere. George could hear the hiss sound of the escaping air. She stopped swelling. She was going down. She was slowly getting thinner again, shrinking back and back slowly to her shrivelly old self. "How's things, Grandma?" George said. No answer. Then a funny thing happened. Grandma's body gave a sharp, sudden twist and a sudden sharp jerk, and she flipped herself clear out of the chair and landed neatly on her 2 feet on the carpet. "Well, that's terrific, Grandma!" George cried. "You haven't stood up like that for years. Look at you. You're standing up all on your own, and you're not even using a stick." Grandma didn't even hear him. The frozen, pop-eyed look was back with her again. She was miles away in another world. Marvellous medicine, George told himself. He found it fascinating to stand there, watching what it was doing to the old hag. What next? He wondered. He soon found out. It was quite slow at first. Just a very gradual inching upwards, up, inch by inch, getting taller and taller, about an inch every few seconds, and in the beginning, George didn't notice it. But when she had passed the 5'6" mark and was going on up towards being 6 feet tall, George gave a jump and shouted, "Hey, Grandma! You're growing! You're growing up!" "Hang on, Grandma, you better stop now or you'll be hitting the ceiling." But Grandma didn't stop. It was a truly fantastic sight. This ancient, scrawny old woman was getting taller and taller, longer and longer, thinner and thinner, as though she were a piece of elastic being pulled upwards by invisible hands. And when the top of her head actually touched the ceiling, George thought she was bound to stop. I'll just show you a picture. This is Grandma getting taller and taller, and you can see she's as tall as the ceiling. My goodness. But she didn't. There was a sort of scrunching noise. Bits of plaster and cement came raining down. "Hadn't you better stop now, Grandma?" George said. "Daddy's just had this whole room repainted." But there was no stopping her now. Soon her head and shoulders had completely disappeared through the ceiling, and she was still going. George dashed upstairs to his own bedroom, and there she was, coming through the floor like a mushroom. "Whoopee!" she shouted, finding her voice at last. "Hallelujah! Here I come!" "Steady on, Grandma," George said. "With a hey nonny no and up we go!" she shouted. "Just watch me grow." "This is my room," George said. "Look at the mess you're making." "Terrific medicine," she cried. "Give me some more." "She's dotty as a doughnut," George thought. "Come on, boy, give me some more," she yelled. "Dish it out. I'm slowing down." George was still clutching the medicine bottle in one hand and the spoon in another. Oh well, he thought, why not? He poured out a second dose and popped it into her mouth. she screamed, and up she went. Her feet were still on the floor downstairs in the living room, but her head was moving quickly towards the ceiling of the bedroom. "I'm on my way now, boy," she called down to George. "Just watch me go." "Well, that's the attic above you, Grandma," George called out. I'd keep out of there. It's full of bugs and burgles." Crash! The old girl's head went through the ceiling as though it were butter. George stood in his bedroom gazing at the shambles. There was a big hole in the floor and another in the ceiling, and sticking up like a post between the two was the middle part of Grandma. Her legs were in the room below, her head in the attic. "I'm still going," came the old screechy voice from above. "Give me another dose, my boy, and let's go through the roof." "No, Grandma, no," George called back. "You're busting up the whole house." "To heck with the house," she shouted. "I want some fresh air. I haven't been outside for 20 years. "By golly, she is going through the roof," George told himself. He ran downstairs, he rushed out of the back door and into the yard. It would simply be awful, he thought, if she bashed up the roof as well. His father would be furious. And he, George, would get the blame. He had made the medicine. He had given her too much. "Just don't come through the roof, Grandma," he prayed. "Please don't." Okay, we'll stop there and we'll find out what happens. See, I don't even know if Dad's going to come back. And when he does, how's he going to react? Is he going to be mad? Is he going to be upset? How's he going to feel? And what about Grandma? She's still going to keep growing and growing above the house? I can't wait to find out. So tune in again later on in the week and you'll find out. In the meantime, look after yourself, stay safe, keep smiling. I miss you lots, and we'll be back again soon, okay, to see each other. Take care. See ya. Bye.